board workshop. Today, we have no public comment. And in today's workshop, we're going to talk through mid-year evidences. We do have an action item for a land purchase. We're going to go through a budget workshop, and if needed, we have closed session at the end. Before we go through mid-year evidences, I just want to point out just a kind of a clarifier that each presenter is going to be able to talk about before they talk about their strategic objective, and that is, given our mid-year evidences, do we feel like we are behind expected progress, on track, or meeting expectations? And so that'll be part of the conversation as we go through these objectives. And I am going to hand over to Dr. Sonia Howard.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to start with strategic priority, area 1, student learning, growth, and progress. And so, based on our mid-year evidences, we believe that we are on track with this strategic priority area. So I'll start with 1.1. In GISD, instruction, assessment, and intervention are aligned in support of student learning and growth. What you see on the screen here is our beginning of year comparison with our middle of year in K-8 math and M-class reading. What you see here is a comparison of our students that performed at or above grade level compared to below and well below grade level for fall and winter. What you can see here by the evidence is that our students are on track. They are making growth and moving in the direction that we would want them to go. We attribute that to the work of the phonics program and the phonics routine that our teachers have gotten into at the primary level, and the beginning of our understanding of comprehension and critical reading and writing that we've been focused on at the start of the school year. And so this is a good evidence of that work. What you see here on the screen now is beginning of year to middle of year comparison in the area of math. And as you can see, and I think we kind of shared this probably when we came together back in October, maybe November, that we have some work to do in the area of mathematics. We talked about going more into the problem-solving arena of mathematics. We have a curriculum that our teachers are continuing to delve into how to better implement for our students. And we also recognize that a lot of focus has been on literacy in the professional learning communities, and that we're looking at how do we increase the time for our teachers to have dialogue and planning around mathematics in that PLC time. We are also adding multiple sessions during our upcoming professional development so that our teachers can really unpack those upcoming units and look more deeply at the standards in the way that they've looked at the literacy standards and the reading standards, so that we can see greater improvement in this area. As you know, as we talked about at the start of the year, we put a heavy emphasis on our professional learning communities and the work that they were doing around support of student learning. And that's what our focus has been on in this area. Our teachers delve deep into finding the essential standards that would help our students learn at higher levels. They've been working on common formative assessments so that they can monitor the progress of our students. And we also, at this point in the year, are starting to look at what are those intervention and extension type activities that our students should be involved in so that they can continue to learn and grow. In terms of instructional strategies, you can see there our literacy framework. We really broke that out this year so that our teachers could understand and think more around the critical attributes of literacy as opposed to just what's happening in their reading workshop and in their writing workshop. And so you can see we focused and are continuing to focus on critical reading, critical writing, mathematical problem solving, and really writing across all subjects. that evidence-based writing that we talked about at the beginning of the year, what it looks like in science, what it looks like in social studies, what it looks like in mathematics, because it does hold a place there for our students. We also talked at the start of the year, and this is evidence of that work, about our leaders getting into classrooms, seeing how our students are learning, and giving our teachers feedback. And so this is evidence of that work. Our goal was 80%, and as you can see, we've had inputted in our system over 2,500 walks by our administrators across the district. And what we could glean from pulling the reports from that data is that 86% of our classrooms that were visited by administrators and marked on our walkthrough form, 86% of those classes showed that the learning was on grade level. It was at the level of the standard for that student's grade level. And then, as you can see, 78% of that, what was taking place in the classroom, aligned to the GISD curriculum. So our goal this year was better alignment with that, to use our curriculum more consistently than maybe previously. And so this is how we are performing in those areas. So what are our next steps? Our next steps are really helping our teachers and principals and teams really understand what the data means that they're getting back in those areas of reading, mathematics. And that they're monitoring that progress and analyzing in a way that they know what the next steps are. In our PLCs, we use 4 questions. You know, what are students learning? How do we know they learn? What happens if they don't? And what happens if they do? And so we're trying to help our teams know what are those next steps when we get into question 3 and question 4. What's happening when our students aren't learning? The data is telling us they aren't learning. What next steps do we take? And also, we are really delving into the writing. That continues to be an area for us to grow in. And for writing, we're looking at the conferencing with students and feedback to students about their writing. And then in support of our campus leaders, we're continuing our campus support team meetings, going out here in the current state and what it is that they need from us in order to be successful on the goals. If it's professional learning, how do we get it set up with the teaching and learning team? If it's, I need more help analyzing my data, how do we bring the data and assessment team out to help? If it's special education, we bring that team out. And so that's what's happening now through early February, where we are about now. Supporting campuses in that way, and then our campus instructional leadership team, we will be analyzing data in a different way, really breaking it down, making sure that we know what those next steps are for our campuses.
I just have to give Dr. Howard some praise. Those campus support team meetings that involve not just Dr. Howard, but other people at this table. Probably one of the most high leverage actions that we've implemented. That's due to her leadership. But when we go in there, it's honest conversation about what is taking place, and then it's immediate follow-up by Dr. Howard and her team.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
When you were going through as far as the walkthrough and looking at, so obviously there's tons of walkthroughs which are happening, which is awesome. Do you see? So is the tier 1 instruction where the gentleman is given the content the first time out? Then tier 2 instruction, is that responsibility with the regular classroom teacher, or is it with? And so do you see within the class? And I'm trying to picture what all of this is. Inside the classroom, then on tier 2. The teacher has the other students doing some work, and then they're pulling groups, 1 group, 2 groups. What does it usually look like? And then where does tier 3 fall in, and who does that? And do we have enough personnel to take care of the tier 3 group, particularly in our high priority schools?
Those are great questions. And so
I can answer the last one.
Okay.
We don't have enough personnel.
Thank you for the honest answer, I figured that, yeah. Go
Absolutely.
ahead, but would
That's
you
what-
just talk about this?
Sure, that's what our teams are going through at this point. It's part of the PLC to understand where students are and to plan ahead for that. Technically, we will be planning for our tier 2 in our professional learning communities. We're anticipating where students might have misconceptions and the teacher plans for some type of intervention in the classroom. Tier 2 can happen in the classroom.
Sure, it can.
Yes. And in many of our classrooms, we do see that. We walk in the classrooms, we see a teacher pulling a group of kiddos and they're working on a particular skill or a particular standard. We have seen that across the district. Now, whether it's just consistent and a part of the way we do business, that's what we're working toward. So that's what we're working for. But is it happening? Yes, it is. We have seen it across. Even when teachers are coming side by side with a student and working and they turn toward the teacher, we've seen that in action. Or the teacher's back at the desk pulling kids, or there's a line there waiting and the teacher's pulling different groups that have similar concepts that are not understood by the students. So yes. Tier 3, yes, we do need additional support there with our priority schools.
Ms. Malden, I would just add, I'm really proud of the work and the effort of our teachers and those who support our teachers, but are we there? Are we there? Are we where we want to be
No.
yet? No.
Well, you wouldn't be in this
but-
length of time.
But I'm really proud of the work, and when I say are we there yet, that is actually not a reflection of teacher effort. That's a reflection of systems and expectations that are being set up. And so where we are on this journey in 1 year, I mean, it's pretty
It's a whole
strong.
different place, yeah. Right.
And we've been trying to be extremely responsive to what we see in the classrooms with our teachers. We bring that back to professional learning. GROW is going to be an example of that. We've gotten lots of questions about conferencing and feedback. We're adding sessions there for teachers. We've had questions about some aspects of the mathematics curriculum. How do I implement this or that? We're making sure that we have multiple sessions in the upcoming professional learning for our teachers.
And it's not easy, you know, particularly when if you are walking into a classroom and you are used to doing whole group instruction, and then the expectation is that you're going to be pulling some groups when it's targeted instructions, that's not an easy thing to do. Yeah.
No, and we've been trying to come at it with a gradual release approach and going back to gradual release so that there's a lot of modeling first from the teacher and then the we do and then the you do. So students aren't going straight into independent practice without enough support from the teacher.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so our second objective in strategic priority area 1 is that we will monitor progress towards students developing attributes in the learner profile. I know you guys have witnessed some of this work firsthand this year at our board meetings, but with that 5-year goal in mind, the right first chunk for us is to systemize recognition and celebration of the learner profile. We're on track in that part of this goal, and so we've recognized 105 students since October 1st at the campus level, and then at the district level for displaying or for growing in learner profile attributes. We also, that this is actually a survey question that we asked our parents this fall, and so 72% of our parents this fall said they feel well informed about their child's progress on the learner profile attributes, and that's actually up pretty significantly from spring 2024. So I think that's a tribute to the work our campus leaders are doing to systemize and get consistent about those efforts in their building. A few ways that we're doing that I want to share with you, that picture on the upper left is at McCoy Elementary School, and they actually have learner profile bucks, and that's how they celebrate a student. They get a buck, and when you get a buck, you also get a dot. And that is a line graph. You can see that yellow is running away with it.
Yeah.
Those are the second grade bucks. Second grade is killing it in learner profile at McCoy Elementary School. So wanted you to see that. That's hanging right outside their cafeteria. And so the students do that. It actually leads to some cool rewards at lunch anytime you get a learner profile buck. There to the right, it's less elementary, it's Georgetown High School, guys, and they're doing something really similar. That's how they're recognizing with little profile cards anytime a student is celebrated for learner profile. That's a wall in their main hall. And then what's beneath them is actually an excerpt I pulled from a faculty meeting at Wagner here in the last few weeks. They're doing some things to revamp their advisory period, and one of their advisory periods is targeting learner profile. And it's skills that are pretty typical to advisory, but the connection between our learner profile attribute of developing self-knowledge and personal responsibility with some of those organizations skills that are happening in advisory. I like to see that in action. So we are on track there, but know, of course, that there's much work to be done to get us to the point where we're monitoring progress in really systemic ways. So with that, I think it's Dr. Howard and Ms. Vandercheck.
Dr. Stoner, but.
Oh, Dr. Stoner, even better.
I'm gonna report on 1.3, which is GISD students are prepared for post-secondary education in the workforce. So one of the progress measures with that is ensuring that our students are given every opportunity to plan for their future. And this year we have our awesome counseling department, Dave and Amy leading that charge. They applied for the Effective Advising grant, and we're implementing that currently. There are 3 priorities with that grant. Grant number 1 is looking at our students in 7th, 8th, and 9th grade and having them complete a career interest profile. So the entire gist of this grant is to help prepare our students for high school, which in turn will prepare them for graduation with the idea that they know what options await them and what their pathway may be to support their areas of interest. So that's where we are right now. You'll see 7th graders, we haven't done that yet. It's in April. 92% of 8th graders have completed that survey for their career interest and 98% of 9th graders. Second priority is that the freshman students will gain a structured advising experience as they transition to high school. They were seeing a lot of disconnect, like on the learner profile survey, that students weren't feeling confident in what choices awaited them, both in pathways they could choose in high school, but then also what awaited them after high school. So they're really focused on that, and through the use of an academic advisor. So Maricela Gomez is in that position, and she's meeting with students to help make sure that they know what pathways are available that align with their interest, so that they have an additional kind of connection to school and feel really good about what awaits them post high school. So you'll see this, if you guys can see, this is kind of interesting. They did a survey, like a pre-survey for students, where they rated their confidence on their personalized graduation plan. And so 1 being, of course, less confident, 5 being more confident or most confident. So you'll see pre-test, kind of all over the place, but kind of maybe best case scenario, like, yeah, kind of confident. Then they were given a lesson from October and November. And so that's what they studied. You'll see post-test, actually a few students were like, I think I'm actually less confident now, so maybe I don't know what happened there. But that's good data to have, you're probably right. But really the magic happened when they met with their advisor, right? So sitting there with Ms. Gomez, talking through with students what their interests are, what pathway would align to that, and what opportunities would await them after high school is really proven to be awesome. So really excited about this work.
Also, I want to give credit to Dave Rainey. He came to our student advisory council, and our juniors and seniors gave some of this feedback just anecdotally, and that this past summer he applied for a grant, and we were able to grant fund that position of academic advisor. So wouldn't have happened without him
So is Gomez
chasing it
see
down.
all of them? Because you just said Gomez to see, how many does she see? Is it in the freshmen?
She's 1 for, yeah, but all the freshmen, Eastview and GHS.
Good Lord.
Yep. Yes.
It's amazing.
She's busy. And then priority 3 is that students will have identified their pathway, and I'm probably need to get into that, but anybody else watching, the students were able to choose graduation pathways that are an alignment of courses that help them graduate with an industry-based certificate or just a pathway of knowing what awaits them after high school. So right now, they're kind of in the mix of that, so they're just like 31% of 9th graders and 13% of 8th graders. So we're really excited about students having this opportunity to do a deep dive in their interest and see that connection of what they're into and what that can look like in high school and beyond. So I'm saying we're on track.
Thanks, Heather. And so what Heather is talking about is a lot of the process that leads to our kids being prepared for post-secondary readiness. and or the workforce. And so what's on the screen are some of the outcomes. These should sound or at least look semi-familiar to you. These are part of the college career military readiness outcomes that we look at each year. These are for our 2024 graduates because that's the data that we have. Just a reminder that this is kind of a lag set of data, and we're still collecting. We don't have a full data set yet. So for example, our on-ramps program, we don't have yet the verified numbers as to how many kids are CCMR through on-ramps, which is a strong program for us. So the IBC rate you see there, 37%, that's up 5%, and I kind of want to call that one out because this is one that, industry-based certification, excuse me. This is one that's gotten a lot of attention from TEA over the last couple of years. Typically, as metrics start trending up, TEA starts to find ways to impact it. And this, honestly, it makes sense, but it's what's changing is a route to certification. Our numbers of certifications will continue to increase, but what's now required is that a student completes a full sequence of that CTE program for that IBC to count. It'll still count for the kids. So a student can take the floral certification as a freshman, be certified, but if they don't stick with floral, that certification doesn't count for accountability purposes. So that's why the effective advising framework is so crucial to ensure that students are being advised and kind of along the way into the right pipelines, if you will, so that their learning efforts also translate to a useful industry-based certification. So that's just one example. Just want to tease that one out because that's one we're keeping our eye on. We've seen really strong growth for a long time in that because of the effort put into our CTE programs. A few more strings are getting attached to that metric. Dr. Howard.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, so AP, college prep math, college prep English, SAT math, and SAT English, these fall under the category of college readiness. So a student can be either college ready or career ready. Military readiness is also one. We don't have that information back from the DoD yet. So you'll see some fluctuations, some positives, some negatives on there. Overall, our college ready math and college ready English levels are kind of leveled out right now with an incomplete data set. So as we get the rest of the data, we would expect those numbers to hopefully go up because they're college ready indicators on on-ramps.
And I just wanted to note that we have formed a district advanced academic think tank to really delve into these kinds of assessments and see where our students are, see if we have a good representation across the district. Are we getting enough kiddos that are taking AP or getting those certifications? So we hope to be able to bring some findings from that think tank soon.
So are we on track with that one?
Yes, we're on track. Right now, it's not quite an apples to apples comparison, but our level is plus or minus 1% from last year's, and we still have data to come in. So I think it's safe to say that number wouldn't go down.
Where did the dual credit numbers fall in?
We don't have the full dual credit numbers, but it's the dual credit numbers we have right now. It's not an equal comparison, but that number's down a little bit. Yeah, because we don't have on-ramps, and it technically counts as a dual credit indicator. Yeah. And that's something that we've seen a little bit of maybe a decrease in dual credit and an increase in on-ramps. AP's been up and down.
And you can't do AP and dual credit or AP and, right?
You
But
can.
You have to choose at some point. Like you
Yeah,
can't
it
do
gets
AP
tough.
English and
Start to run out of
dual
square
English.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna end up. Right. The reality is kids aren't gonna do that. Whether they can or not.
We do have some that'll may choose an AP route for one particular two courses and then a dual credit the other. But we also have a lot that kind of, I would almost say, specialize. Are they saving money or are they going a different route?
What's the difference between on-ramps and dual credit?
So dual credit is kind of what I would call a traditional concept where we have ACC professors that come in-house into our schools and they teach a series of courses to our students. Whereas on-ramps is a partnership with the University of Texas at Austin to where that course is co-taught by both a UT professor as well as a GISD teacher. And so they will do assignments in both kind of UT and GISD. Both will get graded. And at the end of the semester, the student has a choice to either accept the on-ramp, the UT credit, or they can deny it and just take the high school credit. So it's a neat program. We've been doing it close to 7 years probably.
Or is it in person? Is that class?
Oh, it's in person. The UT stuff is more asynchronous, but it's face-to-face with our teachers.
Okay.
And does the on-ramps credit, if they go for UT, only transfer to UT?
No, it's real UT credit.
It's a UT
That's right,
credit.
UT diploma, that's right.
Mhm.
Yeah. For whatever that's worth. It's a full-fledged UT credit, so it transfers to any university.
Any
that will accept it.
university,
That's right.
okay.
All right.
All right, 1.4, GISD learners' progress is reflected in a way that makes it easily understood to all audiences. We feel like we are on track with this particular area. What you see on the screen is fall survey data where we surveyed our parents. 81% feel that they're well informed about the students' progress. That's up significantly, 15% from last year. Spring, 81% feel that their child's progress is reported in a way that's easy to be understood. That's down just a little bit from fall of last year. And then 81% feel that their child's, their child receives useful feedback, and that's up pretty significantly. We also want to credit work toward the report card at the elementary level. There was some feedback that some parents weren't even receiving the report card last year, and we've revamped the report card with a legend and a cover sheet so that parents can better understand the report card and make sure that everyone gets a hard copy of the report card. So.
Yeah, that's new for this year.
And
All right.
that's just the K through 5 group.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna move on to SPA 2, which is student and staff well-being. And 2.1, GISD students are treated with respect and are respectful to each other and to adults. So one of our big progress measures for that is that our walkthroughs reflect a consistent implementation of our behavior support system. And again, that's corrections and connections and systems and all of those things, that tray of supports that we ensure, we guarantee that every student in our district is being provided. So as we mentioned before, we have our general education behavior coordinator this year. Instead of paying Emergentry to do that, we have it in-house. Well, that's allowed us to do as many things, but one of those things is we're doing the Tier 1 review twice a year. So last year it was just once a year at the very end. Now we have one midstream, so we're able to make adjustments earlier. So definitely seeing some strengths with this. Consider this on track with the progress we'd expect to make. We have our Tier 1 processes evident in most classrooms. We have 100% of our elementary campuses with that, a lot of evidence of those good Tier 1 systems happening. 83% of secondary, which we would expect because they're a year behind the implementation cycle. We started elementary a year earlier. So excited about seeing that consistent approach with supporting student behavior with Tier 1. Some areas of improvement that we'll continue to refine and support is just the consistency of the Tier 1 processes, right? We're just, ideally, we want to see just consistency in every single classroom. You're going to have some real highlights and you're going to have some areas to improve, but that's what makes Monica's role important and effective, is that she's there to identify and support those teachers in real time whenever we need her to. So that's been really awesome.
When you say consistency of Tier 1 processes, is it correct that just another way of saying that is just across Georgetown, consistent expectations of how we handle and express or expect behavior in classrooms across the district? Consistent expectations within like a school, right? So they'll have consistent school-wide expectations and consistent classroom expectations, but also consistent implementation of what we'll see in each classroom. So just, you're gonna have some teachers more like further along with their implementation of that, but just wanting to see that consistency. So I'd say it's both things that we're seeing consistency-wise. And then this is our universal screener data, so that's another way. One of our core values are safe, respectful, and responsible. And so this is kind of just a temperature check of our students, and it divides our kiddos up. This is a survey that teachers do on students. And we see about 85% of our kids in what's considered low support range. So these are students that are just responding to that Tier 1 solid behavior foundation, consistent expectations, connections, correction, all those things. And then we have about 11.5% that need a little bit more, and then you have your kids kind of 3% like needing the most significant level of support.
And this is really a very reassuring snapshot of how our students are doing. It's a very healthy temperature check for our staff. We would hope at least 85%. And then I thought this was interesting to show because you see, if you break that down by grade level, not to be, this is very expected, that you would see that the highest level of need is pre-K, K1 and 2, starts getting a little bit better there in upper elementary, right? And so what that's provided for us is a really good pathway of how to best support our teachers and differentiate support and training for teachers based on what students that they're teaching. So Monica's doing some differentiated lessons at our Grow Day for teachers in those early elementary years. And then discipline referrals, that's another thing that we are looking at. We look at that every 9 weeks with campuses where they look at what are some areas like locations in the building or some behaviors that they're seeing consistently. And we're seeing a very stark decrease in OSS placements. We've really tried to be creative on how to help change behavior and shape behavior in a way that doesn't remove students from the classroom. That's not to mean that there's not a correction. Absolutely there's a correction. But there's going to be, we're just being really mindful and thoughtful about which types of behaviors are mandatory to remove from the classroom. And another indicator is the fall parent survey. So we know kind of our inside internal measures of how we're doing with behavior supports, but how our students or how our parents perceiving our efforts and their students' experience. So adults at my child's school treat my child with respect. 92% of parents said yes, that's up 12% from spring. Students are respectful to adults, 60% said yes, down slightly from fall 2023. And students are treated with respect, 95% said yes. So obviously, even though it's similar, I think this students are respectful to adults at 60% is an area for us to focus on for sure, and we are focusing on it, we'll continue to do so. All right, moving on over to
Our second objective in this second strategic priority area is that GISD employees find meaning and value in their work. We're really fortunate because we entered it on track as we ended the year last year. We had some very positive survey data, and that survey data has continued this semester. You can see that we straight up asked the question, 95% of our staff say that they find meaning and value in their work. I've listed there below a little bit of the work that goes into that. We know that that is everybody's role and responsibility, and that as teachers supporting other teachers even in that work, but there's some real overt recognition ways that we structure as a district to allow staff to feel connected to their work, connected to each other, connected to the district work and the district leadership team, but also to just feel really celebrated in the hard work that they're doing every day. And that's what those Lead, Grow, Serve pins, Way to Go grams, Teachers of the Month, and Team Members of the Month is about. So we'll continue in those efforts because we believe that they're really bearing fruits.
Okay. And then 2.3, students feel GISD schools and classrooms are physically and psychologically safe. So one of our progress measures for 2.3 is the use of the student support team. And so looking at the number of students who have come to this team for support, we had 11 total last year. We have 6 so far this year through January. And a reminder that this team is for campuses to be able to turn to when they need additional support for students who they have provided a student support plan and implemented supports and accommodations for students who are needing either mental health supports or could be a safety concern, but they're at the point for this kiddo that they need another level of support. So what it will do is it allows us to kind of bridge school to community resources if needed. It gets everybody in the same room. Sometimes these kiddos are receiving special education services, so it has safety representatives, special education representatives, but it gets everybody in the same room to plan for a student who's not having their needs met to the level we want them to based on the campus resources available. As a school district, we have so much we can provide. Sometimes we need to go outside of that, and this team allows that opportunity. Oops, sorry. And then last but not least, physical safety and psychological safety. Making sure that we are implementing safety protocols is definitely a progress measure for that. And so we just recently had our district vulnerability assessment. We actually, hot off the presses, just had a meeting today with TPA where they came in and shared information. So you guys will get a full debrief at the February board meeting in closed session, but just for open session. Some highlights, we've highlighted that we've gone kind of above and beyond with some of the safety requirements that we have in place and some of the trainings that we provide for our staff. And then some areas for improvement are additional safety training, like for support staff, right? Like cafeteria, custodial, there's a lot of turnover, making sure that those folks are trained as part of new higher orientation. And then some like interesting interpretations of where it needs to be fenced and where it needs to be filmed. And so we are, of course, taking all that information and implementing it to ensure that our campuses are the safest they can be. And then we always have a culture of continuous improvement of our protocols and supports, regardless of what type of incident it is, small or big. We're always getting together and talking about what we can do better so that we can provide the best and safest opportunity or environment for our kids. And I believe that's it for
Dr. Stoner, would you say that we're behind expected progress?
Oh, I'm sorry. I believe we are on track with that.
The last several
Yes,
objectives are all on
2.3.
track. What about 2.2 on track?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I would assume that at the middle school and at the high school, for persistent misconduct, that students are going to have utilized the resources of GAP, and maybe JJAP, whatever it is. But what happens at the elementary level? If you have a child who has persistent misconduct?
Well, as you know, there are laws about when you can suspend kids, right? And
Yes,
also when you put them in an
absolutely.
alternative program. But, I mean, for the
Is there
older
an
students,
alternative to in office, at home? Is there a district alternative?
within the district, we work with the campus really to ensure that that student has an environment that they're able to, I mean, whatever that looks like for that individual student, you know, it's so individualized. But that would be something that that student support team could come together if there's a student who's got persistent misbehavior. Because a lot of times when it gets to that point, there is some level of, interruption for other students, whether it's, a lot of times those kiddos will get to that point. For the older kids, there is the option of in-school suspension. Some of our campuses have some version of that, but it really, of course, we try to minimally use that and try to get down to the root of the need for the kid. I can tell you awesome things that some of our campuses are doing to try to intervene with kids and be able to change their behavior without that, but we do know that sometimes that happens. Oh, that's true too, yeah. For elementary, like the upper grade levels, there is an elementary DAEP.
There is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, we house it at one of our current elementary campuses.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
All right, it is strategic priority area 3, staff recruitment and retention. So 3.1, the Georgetown ISD provides competitive compensation and benefits to employees. The first bullet I have up there is the 24-25 compensation plan that you all approved for us back last spring. We have made significant gains in our beginning year teacher pay as well as step 10. So super grateful for that and feel like that's really helps in our recruitment efforts. Our enhanced compensation that we started this year, specifically with bullets 1 and 3, with our large class stipend at elementary and then our enhanced stipend for caseloads for special education teachers. We've been doing the additional class stipend at the secondary level, but the feedback that we've received from our campus principals and our teachers with the enhanced for elementary and special education really has been more about just valuing the work that they do and feeling like there's some support there other than just a thank you, right? And that's always nice, but we've just received a lot of feedback on this. And just as a reminder, 9 times out of 10, this is funded through a vacancy that may exist, or we have additional students enroll, and so the additional student funding also helps with that. But we've received a lot of great feedback about that. You all just in December also did the mid-year adjustment to our compensation plan, the 50-cent that we did for pay grade 3, and so the feedback on that has been great as well. And then the last bullet there shows that our fall 24 survey data showed that 46% of staff feel that GISD provides competitive compensation and benefits, which is up from 37%. I would say that we're on track with this particular one. I will say for both that I'll say that we're on track, but followed by, I always feel like for this, we're always going to be a little bit behind if we're not 100% staffed. So just kind of throw that out there. All right, 3.2. All right, so 3.2 is Georgetown ISD actively recruits, attracts, and retains employees who embrace the vision, mission, beliefs, and norms of the organization. Talked to you guys a lot about the GRADE program, right? Excited about that. We've got our second cohort of 18 applicants that will be announced on February 14th. We are still excited about the 4 graduates that we'll have in May, which also means that we'll have 4 teachers, 4 classroom instructors that will move to teacher contracts and teacher pay, and we'll be working toward full certification. So excited about that. We started our teacher referral bonus program in December, and we currently have 1 eligible employee for that. So excited to see what that'll do for us in the summer when we get to high hiring season as well. And then we just started our student teacher incentive program. We have 15 eligible, and then you've got the money breakdown there.
How many student teachers did we have this past year compared to that?
In the fall, we only had 7.
Yeah.
So we had 15. And one of the things that Rosie, who's our certification specialist in HR, has done a really good job with this, of creating some flyers and information and reaching out to our university partners to say, hey, this is what Georgetown's doing, so please send us more student teachers. And so we've gotten a lot of questions back from that and are excited to see what it brings us in the fall.
Yeah, well, I appreciate Amanda's effort there, because if we have student teachers start here, we have the opportunity to have them fill a vacancy right when they finish. And the other part is I just want to also give credit to one of her teammates, Leslie Telemontes. Leslie has been instrumental in that great program, just helping us fill classrooms.
For sure.
All right, 3.3 in GISD, professional learning communities thrive across the organization. And I think we've talked a lot about our professional learning communities, but we have more than just the instructional professional learning communities. We have leadership development and that sort of thing within our professional communities. But our focus this year has been on alignment and collaboration and results. And so we'll see amongst and between all of our opportunities, there is alignment across. So what we talk about in our professional learning communities with our principals, we share similar kind of leadership and learning with our system principals, and we share that across our campus support teams.
Okay. Strategic priority area 4. In this one, we visited about last workshop. Linda updated us on a lot of the work that was happening in this area, so some of this will be a little bit of review. The other thing is we talked about it just last week in the context specifically of this objective in a crisis. And so what I want to say is we're injecting energy and attention into 4.1 as it relates to a crisis, because we're not where we want to be. And that is true, while it is also true that we've also received a lot of positive feedback about other aspects of our communications work this year. And so we're proud of that work and are going to continue to attend to the areas that we want to get better at. So when I say we've gotten feedback, that includes a lot of anecdotal stuff. We've talked a lot about hearing that, but our survey straight up pointed to that as well. Particularly up from 19% last spring is our number of parents that agree and strongly agree that we are transparently reporting progress on our priority work. And so that favorable response felt good and told us that some of our efforts are really paying off. About the same number as the year before, though, told us that they feel well informed about issues that impact us as the district. Some of the ways we go about sharing updates about our priority work and issues impacting us are through Parent Square and social media, and so there's a high volume of engagement in our Parent Square platform. And in social media, you'll see quite a bit of increase there, and followers over all of the platforms in the last year, but also just an engagement and two-way engagement, and it's a credit to our communications team, but also to people accessing us in that format. So very much on track in these other aspects of our communications work.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
So on the 442 community members, can anyone subscribe to this?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And like our Thursday e-news is an example of something that we would send
Okay.
to that community member list.
So Parent Square, is that what we use to send out messages about like Georgetown High School? The other day?
Yes, sir.
So community members can see the same thing as well?
If we choose to send the message to them, depending on the kind of message or topic, you can choose different user groups, and so not necessarily, but we could choose that.
Right.
Those types
So
of
we
things.
keep secured stuff, safety?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And there's certainly stuff that we're sending parents, or a principal or teacher may be sending parents that they're not selecting any community members associated with
Gotcha.
that.
Okay.
Good question. Our second objective in this area is that parents and community members would feel welcomed and invited, not just welcomed, but also invited to our schools. And so we see a lot, double-digit gains there from our spring survey this fall, with parents reporting that, but also reporting that they feel as though they're encouraged to be active partners, which speaks to that feeling connected to the school piece. There's some mentors, volunteers, partners, and supports indicators there in numbers. I think we shared these last time, but particularly proud of the watchdogs and mentor numbers as part of those volunteers. And those are programs we just want to continue to support and make as easy as possible somebody getting signed up and getting plugged in a quick time span there. The last area for community and connectivity is that our district staff and school board trustees would establish effective relationships with parents and other key community leaders in support of our students in schools. And this slide looks really familiar because we talked about it last time. It's a real point of pride for us, the number of committees and groups with authentic voice and input into decisions that we have as an organization, and all those asterisks are new this year. And so we're putting a lot of energy into that and feel like it's very healthy for us as a district and healthy for us as a community. And you guys are a big part of that, and we recognize that, and thank you all for it. Any questions about that area or anything else in our mid-year evidences?
Oh, quite incredible.
Yeah, I would say the two areas of feedback that we're hearing a lot, or at least I'm hearing a lot from staff, like district, campus level staff, teachers. Everyone's super aware of the effort and energy you guys are putting in getting into the campuses, and I'm hearing a ton of positive feedback about it. It's not an intrusive, like, micromanaging type. Teachers are genuinely excited of the amount of effort they're seeing from central or admin getting out onto the district itself, or into the campuses. And the other feedback that I'm hearing is the aligned message point that you guys touched on, that they are hearing, regardless of who they're talking to now, they feel like they're hearing the same message, where a year ago that was not what was being told to me. And then the other piece, I think from a parent perspective, the one thing I hear repeatedly is the communications piece you guys highlighted is improved drastically. And I think going to Parent Square and streamlining that has helped all of us feel like we're not getting attacked by our email from the district. But also gives us a tool to get in and get our things as parents. And I hear that repeatedly from the community. So the work you guys are highlighting, a lot of it's being seen and felt on the other side, even if you're not getting that feedback directly.
Thanks, Steve.
It is not lost on me that there is a lot going on in the school district right now, and especially when you look at those committees, that's a lot of late nights for this team that I get to work with, and I just want to express my gratitude for them carrying the work, because there is a ton going on. There's a lot of late nights, but this is about kids and this is about the community.
So I have a question for Sonia. So in your analysis of beginning of the year data, middle of the year data, are you seeing any patterns, or are you seeing areas that, we need to really focus on that grade level, or what? Something's really going well in kindergarten in the reading area. So have you seen any patterns or anything that you would like to share?
I have, and I want to speak to that in particular. With the Amplified curriculum, our teachers are getting better and better at implementing that and establishing the phonics routine and the reading of connected text and writing sentences and that's shown in our kindergarten day. That's shown in the classroom when you go and visit those classrooms. Our students are learning with the literacy piece, and you can see it paid off. I think the pattern or the trend now is that we got to give a little more time to mathematics.
Yeah.
And I think within our PLCs, that's the place where we want to start and make sure teachers have enough time for planning and they can break down those units and the essential standards in mathematics. I think that's the first piece. We brought to you back in October about what we call naked numbers, seeing a lot of computation as opposed to the problem solving that students are going to be asked to. And so we're still working toward that. And at our February Grow Professional Learning, that's an area where we really want to go deep. We'll have our teachers have some cross district planning time, so kinder at one campus can plan with kinder across the district if they would like. They'll have some options there. And we will have other staff. We're tapping into our principals, assistant principals, and learning design coaches to lead some of those sessions across the district. So we're proud of what's going to happen with that. And then lastly, I would say the writing. That's still an area of focus for us that we're delving deeply in. At this point, we're looking at conferencing and feedback to students. And so you'll see lots of sessions for our teachers at February Grow for that. So those are probably the biggest areas, but in terms of alignment and just seeing that alignment in a campus and across the district, that is strengthening so much, and just want to commend our teachers. And I want to commend the teachers anyway about the writing. We're seeing lots of writing taking place, and they really have prioritized that work. And we're just trying to get it and make sure we're going in the right direction so our students can be successful.
Thank you.
I want to say something about Amanda's report about, the large class stipend, the additional class. I mean, to me, I don't know why it's taken us so long to see that, but that, I think, even, for a teacher, it may not seem like very much, but that just shows to them how much they're valued. That when they realize that they're doing something way beyond on a daily kind of a basis, that the district is going to have some compensation. I just think that would make all the difference in the world when you're at that fifth grade class and it hits, I don't know what number it is, but 29 or 30 or whatever, for somebody to walk in and say, you're going to receive this stipend because we understand it's harder.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder than that.
Well, and I'll just say this too, we just had a conversation with a campus principal today that reached out about 2 staff members that have actually taken work on, have no idea that this will be offered to them in their February paycheck. And through the conversation, it's like, when exactly did this start? Oh, on January 7th, right? So then when Julie goes back and calculates the pay, it will come out, because remember, it's the $1,111 per month. So it'll be about a $1,900 increase. And these are teachers that have just taken it on and have no idea that they're going to be offered that. They're just doing it because that's what they do, right? And so I thank you for saying that. I did want to say earlier, right, because it is funded typically through vacancies, which this is as well. But there have been 1 or 2 cases where we've just done it because it's the right thing to do for our teachers. So I can't say that 100% of the time it's funded by a vacancy. Sometimes it's a need that we need, or a need that we have in order to take care of our teachers. So.
Amanda and Jennifer, Hannah, our CFO, they tag team those conversations, and they've been just unhesitant, if that's a word, to do what's best to take care of our staff. Mr. President, would you like to take a break or charge forward?
No, I think we're good.
Okay.
Unless you want me to.
All right. Trustees, I have an action item. This is related
So,
to,
We'll have to call to order, establish quorum, and then we
That's
can
right.
go to the action item if you want to do that.
that's right.
Okay. Well, let me do the formal piece of this real quick.
Get the script.
That's right. All right, the time is 3:57 PM, and I call this meeting of the Georgetown Independent School District to order. Let the record show the quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and the notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551. And with that, we can now move on to the action item portion of our show.
Thank you, Mr. President. Trustees, we have an item regarding a land purchase of approximately 10.01 acres in northwest Georgetown ISD zone. This will allow us to complete a 110-acre parcel in northwest Georgetown ISD for a future high school site and perhaps a few other facilities. My recommendation is that you authorize the superintendent to execute the closing documents for the purchase contract, the exchange contract, and the development agreement, and that you authorize the board secretary to execute a certificate of resolutions memorializing the board's actions.
I'll motion.
All right, a motion from trustee Hurd,
Second.
second from everybody.
I'll yield my second.
Michelle's choice. All right, any questions, comments, anything we need to discuss? Everyone good? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Do you want to go to budget, and then we'll just adjourn like normal?
That is correct, sir.
We'll have to formally adjourn, but you can do it now, and then go back to workshop. Okay, well then, I'll entertain motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And
I'll
second
second.
it. Perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, Mr. President,
Now we're in
trustees.
workshop mode.
Yeah, we're in workshop.
Back to workshop.
Yeah. We are going to move forward with our budget workshop presentation by Jennifer Hanna.
Hello, everyone. So I know we've just gotten a lot of information. We're going to try to just quickly keep you updated on how the budget's progressing. Just a little recap on the current year 24-25 budget, and then looking next year for 25-26, our process and timeline, and then some preliminary budget factors of where we are right now. So just to kind of remind everyone, last time we were together, we talked about where we were, and we amended the budget. So last year, in June, we adopted a $4.5 million deficit budget. We now have amended that budget to be looking at more of a $0.9 million deficit. So we still are in a deficit position, but we are better off than what we thought last year, last summer. So there's really two main reasons. One is due to higher enrollment than we budgeted for. We had taken the demographers' projections and shaved off just based on historical trends. And then also our ADA, our actual attendance of students is higher than what we had budgeted for, because our parents and our staff and our campus principals have really been pushing attendance, and that's increased our revenue. So those two items are really have really helped revenue. And then we also got a one-time $2 million bump. Now this is something we earned, but we earned it back in fiscal year 2022. We do a property value study, and we can go back as far as 3 years, and we do that through the comptroller's office. So by doing that, we do have a one-time bump that we really earned in a prior year, but we'll be getting that from CPA this year.
So that's just a adjustment evaluation that we're giving credit we should have gotten back then for.
Right, exactly. As part of their funding formula, they had it overstated, and so now by going through that formula and reducing it through the comptroller's office, and they send that to TEA, so therefore TEA sends us the difference.
Okay.
So it's earned revenue, but it wasn't earned this year. And again, we talked about attendance that has really helped our revenue side. So You know, we're continuing to really look at efficiencies and controlling our costs, and that has helped also. And we're continuing now as we look forward to the budget process for next year. So just to kind of put a framework of where we are now in February. That's our second budget workshop. We have 3 more workshops. Then we will continue to develop the budget. As we get data, as we get closer and closer and more reliable data, we update our budget projections so that by the time we get to May, we have the most current data that we can. So right now, we're kind of using baseline data that we have, and then in March, we will start to look at some preliminary revenue projections. April, we actually get our certified preliminary tax values from Williamson County, and then and we'll also be looking at some compensation options in April, and then in May we will have a preliminary budget put together, so that then in June, that is when the budget is approved at the regular June board meeting. What often seems backwards to me is that in July, then we get our final certified values. So we've been using preliminaries up until that time. Now, Williamson County does update. They give us updates from April through May and June, but we don't actually get them certified until July. And then in August, that's when we do the adoption of the tax rate, and that is based on the certified values. We don't adopt the tax rate until we have those certified values. One thing, if you guys can remember back to 2 years ago when we were in a legislative session, because the legislature sets the tax rate for us on the M&O side, we could be seeing some volatility here in July and August because sometimes their timelines don't align with our budget timeline. So I wouldn't be surprised if we have some, we had really big tax compression 2 years ago, and we could see that again.
And just to add a little complication to Ms. Hannah's job, when the legislature comes out and talks about setting the tax rate, they don't actually do the math on what that looks like. That's what TEA does in terms of creating the formula. And then we wait for that interpretation of a spreadsheet so that we're able to figure out, like, how do we apply this math to figure out what is our actual funding look like.
So in fact, I think 2 years ago, we didn't adopt the tax rate until September. We have until September 30th. We like to do it in August, but we weren't able to. We didn't have the information. It was too rushed. So potentially we could see that again this time. So just to kind of talk about where we are with our preliminary revenue budget factors, these are kind of the 3 big areas that drive revenue. Student enrollment, of course, higher enrollment equals more revenue and less recapture that we send back to the state. So our most, where we're thinking right now with the demographer, we're looking at growth, but a little bit less growth. So 14,060 is where we are starting right now with our preliminary projections. That's a 1.2% growth over where we are right now. We do have a charter school opening up in the district, and we're not quite sure yet what that impact is going to be. So we're actually, between staffing and budget, we're really trying to wrestle with how to deal with that, how that's going to impact the district. That's something that we have not had to deal with in the last couple of years. So ADA right now, we're between 94 and actually 95%, depending on how you round it. So that's really good. We did budget at 92%, and that was because last year our ADA was at 93%. So we've increased it over 1% and plus some. So that's going to be helpful for the budget this year. We'll have to decide where we want to hit. So then the other driver is our property tax values and tax collections. We are right now projecting a 7% increase. In the past history, we've had double-digit 12%, 10% increases. We're thinking that we're gonna be a little bit more conservative for growth this next year. But again, don't have the data yet, but that's just based on preliminary discussions and then of our tax collections, we budget for a 99% tax collection rate.
Our demographer's coming next. Board meeting. And so we'll get into some of those numbers more then.
Demographer report? Yeah, you'll see the full report in February. So then to kind of just to flip over to the preliminary expenditure budget factors, payroll, of course, is our largest piece of the budget, 86 to 87%. So some of these we've talked about, but I just kind of wanted to make sure that they're just in your mind as we are working through making these decisions for next year. Raises are unknown at this time until we see what the legislature is going to do. We are working with TASB as we do every year. They look at our teacher pay and our other staff compared to peer districts to help us to make good decisions on pay. We know that our SPED department is going to have some staffing needs. We've had some preliminary meetings with them, and we all know the situation with special education. Those students' needs are growing, and so we're going to be needing to look at that staffing. Just as we did last year, we're looking at attrition for Hammerlin and district-wide positions. We took advantage of that last year by not filling positions that we felt that we could either modify a job description or just not fill at all. So we're looking at attrition again. We're still talking about secondary class sizes. It's a discussion that we're having with principals and trying to determine where we feel like that we can land on those class sizes. We also have a process this year for additional position requests. So these would not be campus teachers or positions that are required for the campuses. There's no guarantee, but we are starting that process just so that we can know the needs of the district. And then another thing that we're going to be paying for out of the budget is summer school, because we used to get grant funding for that, and that has gone away this year. That's dried up. So
And there was the summer school was a requirement, federal requirement, to basically close that gap from COVID. That's where that initially came from.
Right, and they were helping give us additional support.
And that federal requirement to have summer school still
It's
exists.
still there.
But
Yes.
funding has been pulled.
But the funding doesn't.
Just
Yeah.
want to make sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely
Just
right.
another unfunded mandate.
Yeah, politicians.
Yeah. So payroll is the largest expenditure. We do have other expenditures as well. We are going to be giving our campus and departments the non-payroll part of their budget. We're going to be working on rolling that out this week so that we can see what their needs are. We have New Frost Elementary opening in the fall, so we're excited about that. And there will be some costs associated with the higher square footage and new facility. We continue to fight inflation. We don't know quite yet. We feel like it's we start projections for property insurance and the things that we're really hit hard with inflation. We're not hearing huge amounts right now, but we don't quite know yet what that's going to do. And then as our teaching and learning team decide on the programs and changes to any of those programs that we're offering, those will affect our expenditures next year as well.
Can I jump in here?
Yes, ma'am.
With Frost opening, we're not rezoning or anything right now, are we?
No, it's
So
not
it'll
on
be
board for this year.
comparable numbers.
That's a good point. So then, just to end with kind of what we're hearing as far as from the finance, I know there's lots of things being discussed in the legislature, but as far as finance, a couple of things that are question marks, but that have come up more than once. One is raising the homestead exemption. Currently it's $100,000, so they're talking about raising it to $140,000, and it would potentially be $150,000 for over 65. That doesn't affect us as much on the M&O side, but it does on the interest in sinking side. Because we're made hold harmless by TEA on the for the most part on the M&O side. But when we have lower tax values on the INS side, then we have less capacity to collect those taxes. So we're definitely tracking that one. We heard yesterday from the governor that raising teacher pay is important.
It's an emergency item.
It's an emergency item, so question mark, but definitely being talked about. We haven't heard much about the increase to the basic allotment. We're not super hopeful. We are hoping for something, but we know it's not going to probably be as much as we need. And then just as we were talking earlier about, mandating or funding mandated programs like special education and our safety. So those are what we've been hearing.
Trustees, do you have any other questions for us regarding the budget workshop?
No, I know you've shared a lot of legislative updates with us, and I appreciate that. Then I don't feel the need to listen, so I just encourage you strongly to continue monitoring and sharing those things with us if you don't mind.
Absolutely. It is very likely that some of the governor's emergency items will get passed in the first 60 days, which is good news because bills take a lot longer typically. So that will help shed some light on what we can do in terms of not only budget and staffing, but compensation.
All right, that was a whirlwind of information. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
As far as for the board, we don't need to we're not going to do closed session tonight. There's no need for it. Do your next workshop, whoever doesn't know, we'll be doing our midterm eval for Dr. Padaville in closed session. So the board members will do individuals. We'll get one-on-one with me. We'll come up with a consolidated. We'll hash that out amongst ourselves. And then we'll do that piece in closed session next week also.
This is the next workshop?
It's
board.
Or the board meeting?
So between now and then, I'll get with you guys. And then if you have questions, obviously Dr. Paddle's team is here to support answering those for you guys. But don't wait till Friday before the Monday to ask them for something you need to fill that out and expect that timely of a response. So if there are things you need, please get it to them sooner rather than later so that I can get with you guys so that we can spend our time hashing out a consolidated version to try to keep the one voice going for Dr. Padaville. With that, I think we are good and done on our side.
Thank you, trustees.
All right, thank you, sir.